Hi, everybody. My name is Kobe Warner. This is KOBLIZZY, and I am so excited to be back for another episode. This week, we are going to be talking about my boy chronicles, some horror stories, some tragedies that I have experienced with some boys, more specifics than I've talked about before. I feel like there's some stuff that a lot of us can probably relate on. I feel like there's a few like talking points, some learning moments for me that I've had over the years. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. But without further ado, you know we're going to begin with the song of the week. So, Sam Smith put out a new album on Friday, the 27th, I guess. Yeah, the 27th, called Gloria. And it's a pop record. So was Sam Smith's 2020 album. The name is escaping me right now, but they also put out a pop record in 2020. I like this one more than I like that one. I really like how in the I'm not here to make friends, the music video for that song, the outfits, it was a lot of color, a lot of super femme stuff, really leaning into the to their gender expression, how they want to express it. I love it. The songs I like from the record are No God. The chorus is, you know God, you know leader, you know saint, you know teacher, you know God. That was terrible, but something like that. And Lose You, I really like. I'm Not Here to Make Friends, I like. Those are my three favorite songs. I will say I was not a super huge Unholy fan. I wasn't the biggest Unholy fan because it kind of just felt like a TikTok hit to me. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a moment, you know I don't really like TikTok hits. I'm trying to get back into posting on TikTok, actually, getting back into TikTok, but I really still resent the power that TikTok has over the music industry. I stand behind that, and so I'm happy that Unholy was able to be a super big success, and it was the first all trans collaboration to top charts, and that's awesome. I love that Kim Petras, a trans woman, and Sam Smith, a trans non-binary person, are being celebrated. I appreciate that, but I just didn't love the song. With that being said, Sam's record is worth a listen. It's a solid pop record. You can tell there's a lot of heart in it, and it's kind of like a coming of age, coming to terms with yourself kind of vibe. Not really of age, but coming to terms, accepting, celebrating, loving. You only get one you. And I think we spend a lot of our lives like picking ourselves apart and wishing that we were different than we are. But it's a waste of time because, to put it bluntly, you don't get anything else. You get one body, and unless you're extremely rich and can afford a bunch of plastic surgery, you're probably going to look the way you look or pretty close to it for your life. So our bodies and our speaking of our bodies, Sam Smith. Speaking of Sam Smith, they've been a topic I've seen on TikTok and the internet, of a lot of hate for how they've gained weight for their body, for leaning into their femininity. People compare pictures of Sam Smith back from In the Lonely Hour days, or um, in the thick of it all. What's the album called? In the thrill of it all. Their first and second albums. They see pictures of them back then wearing black and in suits and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I miss this Sam Smith." But Sam Smith has gone on the record recently in interviews to say that that's when they were their most miserable. They were starving themselves. They weren't happy. They were denying their queerness. They said they actually started out life celebrating their queerness and realized along the way that that wasn't the way to become popular at the time. And so as soon as they started dimming it down, they got popular. As soon as they started dumbing down their personality, watering themselves down for other people, that's when they got popular. What kind of lesson does that teach a person? And so I respect that, 10 years into Sam's career, they're willing to be honest about how they want to express themselves. And I think they should be celebrated for that. And I think that people should stop policing people for how they want to live if it makes them happy and it's not hurting anybody else. Sam Smith is the most famous non-binary person that I can think of, besides Demi Lovato. But Demi Lovato uses they, them, she, her pronouns, which is a different concept. Sam Smith uses they, them pronouns. Both of these people are non-binary, but as a person who also only uses that also only uses they, them pronouns and has for almost 2 years now, 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 2 It's rough and it's hard, and I'm sure Sam has to not get on the internet and not read the comments, because the way that they are policed and brutalized and abused verbally and through keyboards on the internet is really ridiculous, and it's disgusting. And if you've been seeing any of this hate recently, I hope you're not participating in it. Let people be who they want to be. Also, Sam Smith's new music is good. It's still like breakup songs and songs about being sad. It's just like upbeat. You know what I mean? Like, literally touch some grass. Like, be for real. With that being said, we are going to dive into some of my boy chronicles, horror stories, the folklore I'm about to share with you. Are honestly, it's some things that I've held close to me. You know, sometimes you don't want to tell truths or admit them to yourself, because to deceive yourself or lie to yourself is easier than to tell the truth, but it's certainly easier to lie to other people. But I don't like New Year's resolutions. I don't tend to keep them. But a goal I have this year and that I've been trying to uphold is to be more honest with myself and with everybody around me. Just say what I mean and say it then. I have no problem being honest, but sometimes I hold on to my honesty for a few moments. So I'm trying to be a little bit more quick with it, but also withholding stuff, trauma or stories that might be embarrassing that are years old is silly. So with that caveat in place, I will now discuss I think there is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of us have one person that we're hung up on. At least one, maybe it's two. But I think that there is a genuine, you didn't have to have dated them. You don't have to have known them for years, but there's just something about a person that you meet somewhere along your journey that you just can't forget. And like I said, maybe you have two. I have one hang up that no matter where I go, where I've been over the past couple of years since that situation has no longer been a part of my life, it still comes back to me often. And it used to come back in congruence with a lot of pain, with a lot of sadness, with a lot of feelings. Now it's more retrospective, reminiscing on the positive parts. You don't so much forget the bad. You don't so much remember the bad stuff. But sometimes it rears its ugly head, and there's something about a hang up. And I think maybe it can be different for queer people who get hung up in silence. This specific hang up that I'm talking about was with a person who was not willing to be honest about themselves to the world. A person who was not willing to be honest about themselves to themselves, much less the world or anybody around them. I had gone on my, queer accepting myself journey already, and I had been done with that. But it wasn't always the case. And so I'll start at the beginning, because that's a very good place to start. And the story is a doozy. I figure last week I was reading people's emails and text messages to me from that homophobic ass church. So I can tell any story now, it's all up for grabs. So honestly, we have a lot more content. This pot of gold just got a lot more luscious with topics and anecdotes to share with you all. But anyway, the beginning. This boy and I met, should we give him a name, a code name, like Billy? Billy Porter's book Unprotected is right next to me. Let's go with Billy. So yeah, Billy. Simon? No, Billy. Let's go with Billy. So Billy and I met freshman year of high school at a football game that I was at with my friends, and they were at with their girlfriend. We were the same age, both 14 at the time, or maybe he was 15 and I was 14. But anyway, we were close to the same age. And we met at this football game. And this was in 2016, the fall of 2016. And I was deep in the closet at that time. Was not anywhere close to coming out or interested in doing so. But I was also not the kind of gay closeted person that would seek out boys and would do down low shit. I was not DL in the slightest. I was closeted. Down low implies I think you get around, and I was nothing of the sort. I wouldn't even talk to boys at this point. I wouldn't Snapchat boys. I wouldn't like, I wouldn't do a lot. I would not do anything that I thought could be traced. I really thought I was doing a great job at keeping my homosexuality a secret, which is funny and ironic because I was doing a terrible job and everybody already thought I was gay. So I could have just stopped lying a long time ago, but I didn't want to. And the Southern circumstances that I were a part of at the time made me feel like I had to hold on to my secret. That church that I talked about on last week's episode was a huge part of that. I attended that church for a long time. And I remember when gay marriage was legalized, the Sunday after gay marriage was legalized in 2015, I think that was, the pastor was talking about, this is a sad day for Christians. We got to band together at this attack on our religion. I was like, this is crazy. Again, well within the closet in 2015. But it broke my heart to know that something that I thought I might be was not accepted, and they were perfectly fine making that so clear. But this is not about that church. My point is, when I met this boy, I was closeted, and so was he. So we started Snapchatting. He definitely had that girlfriend and then broke up with her at some point, but we just Snapchatted, and we became like good Snapchat friends. The people that you talk to on Snapchat a lot, you don't really see in person. And that persisted for years. And there's a lot of little anecdotes that kind of go along with this story that I think might be a little bit too revealing that I'm going to omit. But we Snapchatted for years. We talked and communicated for years. So freshman year of high school, we meet the first semester. Summer after sophomore year of high school, I come out. And I made a YouTube video. I've mentioned it before. And I posted the video on my Instagram, my Facebook, and my Snapchat, and whatever else I had at the time. And on Snapchat, I posted on my story with like the GIF that says, "Let's get one thing straight, I'm not." And it like moves because it's not straight, And I remember him swiping up and saying like, "Oh, like I wish," which was funny because in the 2 years that we had been Snapchatting at this point, we had never in words discussed that we might have liked boys. We would just flirt or like talk to each other in a way that was kind of flirtatious, or just talk normally, just communicate. But we had never, that was one thing where we had never really said it, but I think we understood that about each other. So when I came out and said that on a public platform, YouTube, that was the first time he would have ever heard the words "I'm gay" from me. But it's not like he didn't know, if you understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to give you foundational, so you can understand. So I come out in June of 2018, and he swiped up my stories like, "Oh, I wish." We kept Snapchatting like per usual. That didn't really change much. And then junior year is where it gets kind of messy because now that I was out, like I really wanted to like talk to him like for real. Like I wanted to make it a thing. And at one point he was like, "Oh yeah, like I like you." Like I wasn't like stupid enough to not check in, but I was like, "Oh, like do we like each other? Like I like you." And there was one point when he was like, "Yeah, like I like you. Like let's keep talking." And then the most ridiculous situation happened. It was so ridiculous at the time. It even sounds stupid now. It doesn't even sound true. But honestly, of all the lies he told, I do believe this one. So one day I just stopped hearing from him randomly. We were really like iMessaging, texting exclusively because at the time I wasn't on social media applications. I was like losing my mind and I decided to get off social media. So we were like iMessage texting exclusively. One day I stopped hearing from him completely. That lasted for a few months. In that few month period, I heard a rumor that he was talking to a girl and I was upset about that. And so a couple of months passed and I get a text from a random number that's like, "Hey, LOL, like it's me, Billy." It's me, Billy. And I'm like, literally, what the fuck do you want, Billy? Like, you're really bold to text me like this or something like that. And then he explained that like he had broke his phone at a basketball game. He had like sat on it and it got crushed or whatever the fuck. It was some whole story about how his phone got broke. But then he was using like some backup phone that wasn't an iPhone. So he couldn't iMessage me. But like he was on Snapchat and he couldn't Snapchat me because I was off social media. You see the point. So we didn't talk for a couple of months. And I was really mad about it because I felt like I had like no explanation. I remember he had told one of my friends, one of our mutual friends, to be like, hey, like tell Kobe I'm not like ignoring them. Like I broke my phone. But once I heard the rumor about them talking, about Billy talking to some girl, I was like, you're kidding me. Like that nigga's lying. You're a dirty low down liar. You know, like I was so annoyed. I was pressed and upset. And so I just remember one time driving in the car with my friend Renee, and I was just bitching. I just remember junior year of high school. I was bald. I was wearing crazy bald glasses, braces, crazy era of time. I basically wore like drug rugs, the hoodies, and like shorts and Birkenstocks exclusively. It was quite the era. I played Jesus on in Godspell that year, and a 40-year-old slave named Jim in Big River. It was just the year overall in theater and life and boys and everything and mental health was a diabolical, ridiculous year. I digress. So we're texting again. I kind of got over my months long anger because it really did seem to be a misunderstanding, and I would believe the rumor. Apparently he really wasn't talking to that girl. He didn't like her. I knew he didn't, but at the time when I heard the rumor, I didn't know that. I also didn't know her at the time, and I came to know her. So yeah, we go back to talking, and then like at that point he was just like, yeah, basically I don't like you as much as like we had a good thing going, but then my phone broke and I don't like you anymore, basically. But he didn't really want to be upfront with me, so it took me a while to kind of get that information out of him. So by the time he told me that, I was really hurt. Because like, what me, you don't let me. Like I was like ready to be a power couple, so it was kind of like unfortunate. And so that was one thing that happened. There was like so many times where I unadded him on Snapchat or was like, oh my God, like I just can't talk right now. Like I don't want to talk. And then I'd be back like 3 weeks later for more because like I really did want to talk, but I just felt like I wasn't getting what I deserved. And so I was smart enough to recognize that, but not smart enough to stay away or not smart enough to not come back for more. You know what I mean? So I could see there was a problem, but I don't know. There's something about getting hung up. I'm telling you, when you get just hung up on a person. And so let's fast forward to like a little bit later in junior year of high school, after he had got basically when he said he didn't want to talk to me no more, I was like, no, goodbye. So then like a year later, my friend at the time, like basically told him like, hey, you should text my friend. Me. And so he texts me, and then she kind of tells me that she told him that, and I was like, oh, but I wasn't mad, you know, but I was like gagged and gooped because I hadn't talked to him for like a year. And so in the summer of 2020, when we reconnected that way, we just kind of hit it off in a way that was a little bit different. I think I was older, I was a little less hung up, or I was a little better at acting like I wasn't hung up. I had a different situationship with another boy during that time, so I was kind of like thinking about him a little bit more, although my concern for Billy still remained. And Billy is killing me. Calling him Billy is so funny. Anyway, so when we reconnected, when my friend gave him my phone number, my new phone number, because I think I changed my phone number at that point or something, I was like, it was the same shit. Like it had been a year and I was just like right back to where I was. There's something about, I mean, honestly, like it's been a minute since I've heard or seen from him, but it's something about being hung up. Like it's different now. I think I finally like realized that you have to have some sort of self-respect and you have to like, I don't know, stand up for yourself and not let people think that you can just be treated any kind of way. Because for a while, I was perfectly fine letting him think that he could treat me any kind of way. As long as he was willing to come back around, I was willing to have him. And so in 2020, that was when it was more than just like Snapchatting or texting. We hung out a lot. We had some situations. And those are like my fondest memories of him for sure, was 4 years after meeting him. That summer when it was just us hanging out, just doing shit, and it wasn't really like there was nobody else around, nobody to impress. He didn't feel the need to front or like pretend to be somebody he wasn't. because there was nobody to impress. I was willing to take him as he was, always. And those are my fondest memories. And so, like, right before he went to college, we had finally connected on that level. And then he went to college, and not like a week later, he had a hickey on his neck. Like the other week later, he was talking to a boy. A week after that, was dating this boy at his college. I was just like so hurt and pained that after all these years of wanting him, I have finally got him. And then 2 weeks later, I was like really that much of an afterthought. Like that shit, the way that struck me at that time was like I thought it was done. I thought I was done for. Like, it's crazy how big of a deal stuff can seem, because that really took me out. But even that, ow, that hurt. Like, fuck. So, like, even like I said, I had a history of like being like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But this time, I couldn't even tell him like I can't do this anymore. I couldn't even be like, I was so embarrassed that I was so jealous, but I was so jealous, and I couldn't understand how he wouldn't understand that maybe like there's this Snapchat he sent me the day before he left. We had like a really dry goodbye. When he was going away to college, we hung out the night before, and I was just like, dropped him off at his house. I was like, oh, like, bye. And it was just like a dry goodbye. We had a lot more like intense moments. And our goodbye was not one. I was just like, bye, I gave him a hug, and that was that. It wasn't like a moment at all. And while I was driving home, he sent me a Snapchat, and he was like, I wish I could have at least kissed you or something. Like that was such a dry goodbye, something like that. And I remember thinking there was hope. And then a week later, he has a hickey on his neck. A week later, he's talking to that boy. A week later, he's dating him. And so you can see how this would 4 years into a situation, you finally got somebody, and then it was that fleeting. And like, maybe I read into it, and maybe I was always taking his like, flirting or just wanting to like, but it wasn't like we would just like hit it and quit it. You know what I mean? Like we were genuine friends, and we had way more of like a foundational friendship connection than we had anything else for most of our relationship. And so once it had finally got to that point, I thought of at least maybe I would have gotten like the upfrontness enough to, communicate to me and tell me that. But once I didn't receive that, and he was just doing what he was doing, and just hoping I wouldn't say anything, hoping I'd be okay with it, and just continue to be his number one best friend on Snapchat and be his bestie. And I did for a minute. And then after his birthday, like a couple of months later, I sent him a birthday present. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. And so like I said, I couldn't tell him. I didn't want to say like, I'm jealous. This is hurting me to watch this happen. But he took a trip to go visit this boy at college. Oh, the boy didn't live there, by the way. Where he went to school, the boy was just there. Like that was his home. But the boy went to college somewhere else. So you went to another place. I'm trying to like not say locations. You went to another place to start dating a boy that didn't live there. You know what I mean? So like, what was wrong with me? What was wrong with me? What was wrong with me? And it's like, I know what was wrong with me, or at least in his eyes. Like, I don't think I was that mask boyfriend that, he wanted. Which is kind of sad. That was probably the reason for all the strife and the turmoil and the years and 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 years of, I don't know, happy emotions, sad emotions that this situation has caused. But anyway, he went up and he started dating that boy, and a month or two later, I was gone, and I just kind of fizzled away. I just slowly like stopped answering his Snapchats. I just, really wasn't interested in talking anymore. And so, of course, I gave him another chance a year later. So the summer of 2020, we reconnected after he didn't hear from me like a year. And then a year later, in the summer of 2021, we reconnected once again. He came to my birthday party, and he was like, he just said it straight up, said like, so are we gonna talk about what happened? And I was like, yeah, like not now or something, because all our friends were there, and that was just been kind of weird to like talk about right out of the gate. I'm like, we can hold on to it a minute and just like be cool and cordial. And so then we just ended up hanging out for a couple of days, and we never really got around to the conversation, and just kind of fell back into that old rhythm that you can fall back into with somebody that you know that well, that you're hung up on. And a couple of days later, he like sent me a Snapchat and was like, "So you never told me. We never talked about it." And so then I just was kind of honest with him at that point. I was like, "Yeah, I was just jealous. Like after everything that happened between us, and you just went away, and I was like that disposable, and there was like nothing to you to just move on and start dating this other boy." And like send me pictures and videos. You gotta be like, look how cute, kiki. Like I just can't believe that he could really believe that he wasn't hurting me. Um, but I didn't want to believe that he knew he was hurting me because I didn't want to think that he would do that even though he knew he was hurting me. You know what I mean? I didn't want to think that he would do that. And he was like, well, I kind of like suspected that what it was, but I never really knew for sure. Of course, because I never told him. Ghosting wasn't necessarily the best way to do it, but I don't, it's 111 claiming that. I'm not sure he deserved the explanation. You know what I mean? Because of what he did was shitty, period. Um, yeah, like he didn't owe me his love, but he could have owed me an explanation. Especially after talking to me the way he talked to me. Like I wasn't just reading into everything. He definitely would give me the material to read. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just me making shit up and grasping and reaching all the time. Sometimes it was, but it wasn't always. And so I was honest about that then, and we hung out a decent amount in the summer of 2021 too. And then I moved to Boston, back to Boston for college. And so we were really, really far away from each other, but we were still like Snapchatting. And then a couple of months later, like, well, really, not really. It was like at the beginning of my fall semester in 2021, like right after I got to school, pretty quickly he had like stopped talking to me as much, which was noticeable because we were each other's number one best friend, and then very quickly we weren't. And so my assumption, of course, that he was trying to make me like not be his number one best friend anymore, because we had like the best friend heart and everything. Not that it matters. I'm just telling you that we had it. And for about 2 weeks, I didn't really hear from him. I was just like, I'm not gonna try to talk to you if you don't want to talk to me. And then about 2 weeks later, he sent me a Snapchat and he was like, hey. And I was like, hey, always willing to talk to him. Hung up. And he was like, I'm sad. And I was like, why are you sad? And then he sent me like a Snapchat. I don't know if all of you use Snapchat, but I'll try to describe this as clearly as I can. He sent me a picture Snapchat, a photo, with the timer set to infinite so it doesn't disappear until you tap it away. And he had covered up the entire photo snap with text boxes, the original text box, and it was just covered up all in words. And it was basically this sob story about how about 2 weeks ago, when he had stopped talking to me as much, he'd found this guy that he'd really liked, and they had been talking, and he added that he had never really felt this way about a guy before. Like really ridiculous. Like, I've never had somebody that like made me feel this way, like telling me this. And it's like, even if it's true, don't you think you could like not shove the knife in and then twist it? But he's like, so I found out you're annoying me because you were talking to another guy. And then, I mean, like I said, I lived miles away, hundreds of miles in Boston. But like still, you could spare me the details of this. But the way fucking asshole. Anyway. I unplugged my headphones. Anyway, so he's like, yeah, this guy, like I never felt like something about this before. And then like all of a sudden he just ghosted me. I'm like, oh, wonder how that feels, And I read that Snapchat. I was sitting on my friend Bella's roof in Boston with all my new friends, a lot of whom I'm not friends with anymore. But at the time, I had this big new life. And I read his thing, and I was like, I am bigger than this, and I am bigger than you. I tapped that Snapchat out of my phone screen, and he never heard from me again. And I'm happy to say that that was it. That's 2021. It's 2023 now, and I still haven't spoken to him. And so, not to say I don't think of him sometimes, and I'm not hung up occasionally, but like at this point, I'm not even really interested in boys in my life like at all. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's trust issues. Well, it is, but it's also like I don't have time for it, and there's nobody worth the time. I have not found anybody worth spending the time on. And I'm not gonna spend time on somebody and honestly carve out that part of my life for them to, fit in, nestle into, if you're not actually worth my time, if I don't actually see this. Because I'm busy and I have things to do and content to create and yoga to do and music to listen to and movies to watch and friends to hang out with, just better, bigger, better shit than wasting my time on a boy. It's just not a priority to me. Like I said, maybe it's trauma. And I'm sure, one day I will welcome myself, warm back up to the idea of a man in my life. But he was shady. And like I said, that was such an abridged version of the story. Like that was like the recent like moments. But for a year, I mean, we met in fall of 2016, and I kindly ushered him out of my life in the fall of 2021. It's a long time, and it's been a year and a half or so since then, and I still think of him. He still crosses my mind because that's how it goes. I'm kind of realizing in life that trauma, when you experience it, or bad situations, don't leave you, but time is your best friend. With time, things that hurt dampen, but traces of them, I kind of feel like they always remain. Some things maybe are so terrible and so traumatic that we block it out altogether. I have some of those things too. I'm sure you do. But trauma like heartbreak, your first heartbreak, your first hang up, I compare every man to him, every boy to him. And it's not always like overtly or consciously, but the way I felt about that person, the connection I felt that I had with that person, has never been replicated with another boy or person in that way. And because of how exhilarating that situation was when it was good, I refused to accept anything less than that. But what's funny was in that situation, I was willing to accept less than that all the time, just for those little glimmers and glint of a good moment. I now won't accept anything but goodness in anyone else, which is good to have high standards, I guess. But it's also because I learned from that situation of being, discarded and not being the first choice, not being the first thought. I learned that you have to value yourself. And at the end of the day, all you have is you. I have some amazing friends. I have fantastic parents. And I have wonderful people in my life. But in the middle of the night, when you are laying there thinking about your mortality and debating who controls the universe and what's in the sky, it's just you that's there. And if you can't sit with yourself and be okay in being alone, I think it's something you should work on. And you don't have to take my advice. I'm not like fucking Dr. Phil or anything, and I'm not sure how qualified he is anyway. But healing from that trauma, one of the biggest, I think, largest things that have hurt me, because I think it's span of time. Also, there's another layer of DL-ness, the being down low of it all. Down low niggas are really hard to deal with, and I think that a lot of queer people feel like they have to deal with down low guys because of how few queer options there are in our adolescence, and even as we grow older. Because, like, in high school, not everybody was comfortable being gay or coming out. And so the people that were comfortable being gay or coming out weren't always, like, what you wanted. And so, I mean, I wanted to have a high school sweetheart just like any other straight person. Just like any other gay person. But the difference in being straight and being gay is that there were options. And, like, not every straight girl or boy had a boyfriend or girlfriend in high school either. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot easier to find companionship when there are more of you and there are more straight people. There are more people comfortable being straight or pretending to be straight. And so there's a lot of fish in the straight sea. But then and even now, there's not a lot of fish in the gay sea. And I haven't had the most fantastic romantic experiences with boys over the years since Billy. Billy wasn't amazing, and he was my first like hang up. I'm gonna keep saying that because I just feel like I don't know if I've ever heard anybody use the term before, like a hang up, somebody you've been hung up on, but like hang up, bitch, that's what it was. I was hung the fuck up. And so I've had situations since then, and they weren't amazing either. Like they weren't wonderful either. That wasn't fantastic either. And so sorry to any of you who are listening, but I'm just like, nothing got me the way he got me. I feel like I should get off of this podcast and stop blowing his head up. If he listens to shit, he's gonna be like, oh, so I'm thinking about you thinking about me like that. But it's like, I wanted to tell my story of a hang up. I feel like you guys will get it. I feel like there's an extra layer of being queer and suffering in silence for a lot of it, because like, you know, even though I came out, he still wasn't out, and so I didn't want to blast his business in the streets about how hurt I was. And so it was just kind of like something I would go through secretly, you know. Wrote a lot of songs about it, made a lot of art, some good breakup songs if you want to listen to my EP Aftermath. But situationships can hurt and affect you just as much as relationships can, especially when that's all that's available to you. And so for me to have never dated that boy, and for that boy to have never been my boyfriend, Billy sure did a number on me. So yeah, that's kind of my story about Billy, my boy chronicles, the worst of it at that. I have more stories, more situations about him and other guys if you want to hear about boys. The episode that I did about men and like dating men in general seemed to be one that you liked. So if that's true, let me know. Happy to talk about men. I do find them sexually attractive, although their intellect and behavior does bother me like 70% of the time. So if you enjoyed this episode of KOBLIZZY, let me know. I did say I'd be back with something more fun this week. I'm not sure how true that was, but hopefully it was entertaining at least. Please leave a review if you liked it. Please like this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Comment on it if you're watching it on YouTube. And please follow me on Instagram and TikTok if you don't already. It's at KOBLIZZY, KOBLIZZY. Same name as the podcast. My name is Kobe Warner. I really enjoyed this episode talking about my trauma. Billy, if you're out there, go to hell. And I will see you, the rest of you that I do like, next week. Goodbye.